I mean, it's really wherever I am, guys, wherever I want to be. And, you know, I don't know if you guys watched on Peacock last week in Toronto when I was roaming the grounds. I found myself a nice air-conditioned booth, hospitality suite to watch from. And I've done the same now. I am in these brand newly constructed entertainment suites, hospitality suites up here outside of Turn 1, Hy-Vee branding all over them. And, guys, this is one of the best seats in the house, short of being behind the wheel of an Indy car. You can quite literally see the entire 7/8 of a mile track here at Iowa as we see the one car on track, Rinus VeeKay, going around getting some laps in. And you're up high. You've got a great vantage point. They are beautifully constructed. They're catered. I mean, if you're a local company and you want to entertain customers, clients, employees, whatever it is, this is the way to see this race, guys. I think we might try to campaign to move the booth here. What do you think? This looks pretty fun.
That looks awesome, and that's been on my to-do list that I haven't gotten to yet, so well done. I wanted to see what this looked like, and this will be open coming up tomorrow. So that's, you know, suites are fantastic, but This is essentially an outdoor suite with cover, and
look at those.
Sometimes you make a choice between, is it a great place to watch the race, or is it just being in a suite? This is both.
Look at the tricked out cooling devices there. I haven't seen those before. It's almost like the twin to a heating lamp, but in this case, the Vector.
And I can tell you, they work a dream, guys. There's a beautiful breeze up here coming from these machines.
So here's the schedule for the weekend. This is the only practice session. It's a 90-minute session here today. Qualifying tomorrow morning, 9:30 local, so that's 10:30 Eastern time. Indy Lights on Peacock here this weekend. Townsend will be joining me in the booth for that. Then you've got concerts before and after. Tim McGraw, Florida-Georgia line tomorrow. And make note, for the HighVdeals.com 250, when we say 4 o'clock Eastern time, we're not kidding. The command is at 4:01. So be by your television on NBC and also on Peacock tomorrow afternoon. And then Sunday, Gwen Stefani gets us started at 1 o'clock Eastern time, so noon for those that are coming to the racetrack, and a little bit after that. And then the Hy-Vee Salute to Farmers 300. We will have a little bit of a pre-race show and a green flag coming up at 3:30 Eastern on NBC Sunday afternoon. And I found out our heart cards are going to work to get down close and see Blake Shelton after the race on Sunday afternoon.
Good stuff. Look at this, the Hy-Vee solid red, candy apple red Hy-Vee card. Normally we see it in a pretty sinister matte black the rest of the season, but I like the all red look from the Hy-Vee car. I also like how much you can appreciate just how bumpy the back straight is here at Iowa, and then coming through turn 4, some really big bumps over the patches here. James, it looks a lot bumpier than the last time we were here, and I'll bet a lot bumpier than when you were winning those races.
You know, it's funny, man. I talked to a lot of the drivers after the 2 tests that happened in the last month here, and a lot of them say, you know what, it's pretty similar. We know we haven't been here for a year, and Iowa winters can be rough, but this is just how bumpy this track's been for a while, Townsend. It's got some damper velocities that match what we see at Detroit. So you've got, you know, super speedway speeds almost and street course bumpiness. It just shows you how challenging this is, not just for the drivers, but for the engineers as well. These Indy cars are not really used to dealing with those kind of bumps and that many surface changes when going at those speeds. So it is a huge, huge challenge. And for sure, you're going to see a lot of guys bouncing around, and not just after a 250-lap race on Saturday, but another 300-lap race on Sunday. You're going to see a field of exhausted drivers at the end of this weekend.
Let's take a look at this replay, Kevin. Look at that. I mean, that fully unloaded the car there. It's almost like it jumps into turn 1 coming in up high. And the other thing that I think's changed a lot is just how light the asphalt is, the contrast to the dark sealer. It just seems like there's even more dramatic difference between the seal and the patches as the original asphalt layer has just brightened up.
Here's a look at Kyle Kirkwood. Sexton Properties, again, prominently displayed on the famous number 14 for A.J. Foyt Racing. And Dave has an update on the birthday boy, the most recent winner.
Well, let me make sure I have something straight first, Kev. You said these races are starting Saturday and Sunday afternoon, right? Not after sunset?
Correct.
Is that right?
That is correct.
So, Townsend, good weekend for a cool suit?
Yeah, good weekend for a cool suit and all manners of cooling devices, especially when you're sitting in practice.
And when is the cool suit not your friend?
when it stops working.
Yeah, stopped working before Scott Dixon got started here this afternoon. Hopped right out of the car after the installation lap. Went back. I said, you changing it? He goes, no, I'm just taking it off for this afternoon. So they'll work on that. But the birthday boy who, can always use a little assistance whenever he can get it, would sure like that cool suit to be working. It will not be for this practice session.
Hey, Dave, what's the device called in a car that's used to cool the water?
Radiator?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's the device called in an old house in the room used to heat it up?
Radiator.
radiator.
Also a radiator.
That's why Scott Dixon had to get out right away.
I like your riddling.
Can do both.
It can go either way. It can cool the core way down, or it can completely destroy your core temperature in a second if that thing stops working and it starts circulating hot water. So
let's discuss this now, because there's a little bit of debate amongst drivers, because there is a bit of a weight penalty if you put that on. They have to put the box in there. Does 6 or 7 pounds matter on an oval race?
everything matters. Everything in racing matters, just like everything in any sport matters. And does it matter that a guy can run a 4.340 versus a 4.40? Of course, it matters. The question is that important enough to sacrifice the driver's well-being? Because when you overheat mentally, you start to go into a fog. You start to make poor decisions. You start to go into survival mode. You start thinking, I just want to get to the end, as opposed to attack all the way to the end. And that's a subjective determination. The weight difference is binary. The engineers know to great specificity exactly what the performance cost might be of 5 to 6 pounds. But the mental deterioration, the physical deterioration, that's much more difficult for a racing engineer to quantify. And that's why that decision will always be given to the driver. You've got to make the call. Do you think you need this or not?
And I want to know, are we talking about a 10th, or are we talking about 100th of a second is the difference? If it's more than a 10th, then I might say, I got to figure out a way to deal with it. Exactly.
It's not a 10th.
So I think your mental sharpness is likely more important.
Yeah, but if you're telling me I can drive in a semi-fog state and go a couple hundredths faster, I'm usually going to take the speed.
You, though.
Well, I should say, when I was in my 30s.
Yeah. And you're also weighing not just outright speed, but the chances that you make a mistake. And if you're in a championship fight, a mistake on Saturday could potentially impact your race on Sunday. You might have a lost weekend. It's tough to get the car back. We've seen this in these doubleheaders before. Someone that crashes big on Saturday impacts them. Hinch, I think that happened to you in one of the doubleheaders in the last few years, where you had a crash and maybe it was an electrical issue, but it wasn't the same, and your whole weekend was lost.
Yeah, that was at Texas. Texas back in 20. It's so tough to keep, when you have an Indy car, it's tuned to the absolute nth degree, as you guys know, and after every normal race, the car goes back to the shop, gets totally torn down. Every single part is inspected and taken care of, replaced if necessary. When you're having to do that, especially in the case of Texas being a night race, right? It was the night of Saturday, have an accident, have to tear the car apart, try to rebuild it, get it all back up and running in time for the race on Sunday. The crew's exhausted, and sometimes things are missed and issues arise. So a bad day Saturday can definitely have knock-on effects here for Sunday's race.
James, are you taking a cool suit tomorrow in the race?
100%. I know your point is valid that 7-8 pounds around a racetrack, especially one where the times are so tight because it's such a short track, every bit counts. But at the end of the day, you need to be sharp for all 250 or 300 laps on Sunday, and I just think that the driver makes a bigger difference than 7 pounds of weight in the car. So for me, if I'm a driver, if I'm a team owner, I'm making my drivers wear it.
It is another opportunity for a failure, right? So
is a great point.
And then it's worse.
And has anybody ever run a cool suit for 250 laps at Iowa?
I don't believe they existed the last
time we came to So
Iowa.
my point is, you're going to go. You've got an electronic device that is radiating your core. We just talked about you can radiate two different ways, too hot or too cold. If it fails and you're radiating heat on your driver in a 90-degree, 100-degree temperature situation, that's probably terminal in terms of the end of your race result right there. So that's another thing I think these engineers will be considering is we assume it'll work, but this is a super high G situation. This is not just, your average. It's not like Milwaukee where you don't have any banking. I mean, this place you're pulling 4+ Gs in the corners. and what that's going to do to electronic devices. I mean, it reminds me of my F-16 ride. We had an electronic failure there. It's because the electronics are put to the absolute extreme at a place like Iowa.
You got to think that maybe during the tests, though, this past month, they would have run the cool suit and tried it out to see if there were going to be any issues if they thought they were going to use it. So I wonder how many teams used it in the test, and if any of them saw problems.
Yeah, but nobody did 250 laps continuously.
Well, I mean, were you there?
I'm telling you.
Yes, no, I saw the charts. That is true. Nobody did that.
Connor Daly has the early top speed. Pole sitter in one of the two races 2 years ago here. It started third in the other. By the way, qualifying coming up tomorrow morning. It's 2 laps. The first lap sets your position on the grid for race 1. The second lap, your starting position for race 2. So Scott Dixon coming off win number 52 in Toronto last weekend. Now a little bit more in the championship fight. Another good result and definitely much more in the mix. Dave.
Yeah, and he really wouldn't say, Kevin, when I talked to him about an hour ago, whether that was the start of the roll, the momentum that they needed to get to a 7th championship, as you see him now pulling his Honda down toward the apron here. But he said it doesn't hurt by any means. This team knew it could do what it had done. He said the bigger thing for us, even bigger maybe even than getting the 52nd win, was that this group hadn't won in, nearly a year? And so that was huge for them to get this car to victory lane. He said that was the biggest boost that they can get, and that's the kind of boost you can ride toward a championship.
Let's go back to last week in Toronto. Scott Dixon almost won his first pole outside the Indy 500 since Watkins Glen in 2016. Started second, and Townsend, this is after the first pit stop. Dixon had come in 1 lap earlier, got Colton Herta going into turn 1 on the warmer tires.
Yeah, and by coming in a lap earlier, he also had a really clean pit lane. I talked with Brian Herta at the end of the race last week at Toronto. I said, what was the difference between the pit stop exchanges? And he said, really, it was just getting trapped in our box with a car in front and car behind us that made the difference. But perfect job from the PNC crew. That number 9 of Scott Dixon was just brilliant at Toronto. Wonderfully balanced car. I mean, we could see it all through practice that Scott and his team had done such an awesome job to set that car up well for the race. And they proved it out on race day. Just kind of stroll to the win. It's never easy there, but they made it look easy.
So he ties Mario Andretti all time. You want another note? I looked up at Russ Thompson, look up oval wins career this weekend. He's tied with Mario Andretti with 24 career oval wins. So one more and he passes him. Foyt, obviously the leader in that as well with 40. Bobby Unser, 28. Then Rutherford, Al Unser, Mario and Dixon are next on that list.
So I proposed on Twitter that we start a GoFundMe for Mario to enter Laguna Seca round.
How much did Mario contribute?
I don't even think he replied yet. I don't even know if Mario knew about that. But it got 586 likes. Not bad. There's a lot of people out there like to see the legend strap up one more time.
Yeah, Townsend, I think that Michael would match that donation to not let that happen. He is very, very serious about not letting Mario drive a race car again after that test at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in one of Michael's cars. That didn't end super well.
No.
That was in 2003. And if I recall, Mario was serious about, if needed, at least qualifying the car that year. And I'm sure he would have raced it if given the opportunity.
Well, it was like the most freakish thing ever.
Yeah, he could have done it.
Nose cone fell off, right? Somebody had wrecked in front of him.
It was debris crash in front of him.
Yeah, and the yellow wasn't out yet. Hit the cone. The cone lodged under the car, kicked up the front end, and it took off like a popsicle stick at 200 plus miles an hour and just went end over end. Look at Connor Daly with 2 miles an hour delta to Joseph Newgarden, arguably the best driver in this field at Iowa. Not arguably, statistically the best driver in this field at Iowa. I mean, Connor has this freakish connection with this place.
As I think does Joseph Newgarden. What is the stat in the last it's either 7 or 8 years. He's led 1,150 laps. Next most is like 250. It's, you combine the entire field, they haven't led as many as Newgarden has over that stretch, and he's a 3-time winner and the most recent winner. Dylan.
Well, we're getting a good look at Joseph here with the Hitachi on board, and talking with his teammate Will Power today, I thought he had some interesting comments just about the success of Team Penske here and maybe some crossovers to some other teams. So who drove for Team Penske last time we were here in 2020 that is now with a different team? Well, that would be Simon Pagenaud, who is now over at Meyer-Shank Racing with Andretti Autosport as kind of a support team. And Will made the point that Simon went to this other team, to Andretti theoretically, and he's got his thoughts, his ideas, his notes from his time spent at Team Penske, who is so good here. And are the Andretti cars and the Meyer-Shank cars theoretically going to be as fast and have the same pace this weekend that the Penske cars do? So I asked Adam Rovazini, who's the strategist for Helio Castroneves, if Simon has in fact been able to bring any notes over to this team, and he said yes and no. I think there's some in theory, and ideas as far as what works and what doesn't, but the notes and the actual setups team to team across the board are different. So there's things like damper setups and the ride heights and things that don't necessarily translate from team to team. But I think in principle, having the knowledge of a team who has been as successful as Team Penske has been, and then taking that over to another team, it has to help, right? Just in theory. And Dave, I know that there's another guy that you talked to earlier today who was also at Team Penske and now is at a different team that maybe has some similar thoughts on that as well. Yeah, Dylan, continuing the theme, Gavin Ward is now the director of trackside engineering for Aaron McLaren SP and sits on the pit box for Felix Rosenquist, who's currently 7th. Take out a couple of sim runs there, and Rosenquist is with top 5 speed now. But talked to Gavin earlier, and he said, yeah, I just joined the company on July 1st, actually. Wasn't even here for the test. But one of the things that excited me was that even though we were really strong at Team Penske, when I knew that we were the best, I also knew that AMSP was very, very good here. So that gave Gavin the confidence to come here and to add what he might be able to this weekend. He said it's mostly going to be what they already do. But I am just glad to be here on this group, and I think I can contribute a little bit more. Maybe during race time, James Hinchcliffe, because sometimes it's not all the stuff you do ahead of time. It's having that reaction during the race and the experience to take your team to victory lane. Yeah, there's no doubt this race ebbs and flows a lot. We know how important tire degradation is here, how big a part it plays. So the strategy side of what they've done at Team Penske in the past could certainly benefit the McLaren team this weekend with Gavin on board. And the experience that Simon Pagenaud has running with the Penske organization, starting last, getting up to the front, his racecraft is definitely going to add something to the mix as well. So this is one of those places where, look, a good car is definitely going to make your afternoon easier, but guys like Joseph Newgarden have proved you can race for different teams and win it with different teams. The driver plays a big part here as well. So I think both these guys are bringing a new element to their new teams, and both should be able to raise the program of what they're running now.
So the yellow is for a track inspection. So everyone comes down the pit lane to get a little reset. And that gives us a chance to find out, oh, this might be a hint as we zoom in. Where is Hinch now?
Well, I'll tell you where I am. You're looking at where I am. That there is the Hy-Vee mobile grocery store here, guys. And look, you cannot say enough. It cannot be overstated what Hy-Vee has done to this Newton, Iowa racetrack here at Iowa Speedway. They've committed so much energy, so much resource to making this thing an incredible event for fans, drivers, spectators, everybody that's coming out. And one of the things they've done, we know this is a big camping culture here in Iowa. There's motorhomes all down the back straight, all outside the racetrack here. And look, sometimes you forget some provisions. And so what have they done? They've brought in essentially a tractor-trailer unit, a shipping container. They've turned it into a mobile grocery store in case you forgot some of the necessities you need while you're camping. I mean, I know I need all sorts of stuff when I'm camping. I'm going to need some salsa. You always need some salsa, right? Because you got to put chips. You need some tortilla chips with your salsa. You got to have
Chex Mix.
Oh, Chex Mix. You're a Chex Mix guy. We'll get that for Kevin. We'll get you 2 flavors, Kev. Townsend, you got any requests while we're here?
I want to look at the sauces.
You want sauces?
Just
okay.
Just to your right there.
Well,
there's a smattering of sauces.
We got your ranch, your mayo. We got some A1 sauce, Heinz 57.
Oh, Sweet Baby Ray's right there.
Sweet Baby Ray's. Okay, this one's
Give
for
me
Townsend
some of that
here.
action.
Frank's. I put that stuff on everything.
Whose
So
expense report is this going on?
Well, you know, I
Lee
think
Diffie's.
we'll send compliments of the diff. You got ice, water, beer, all sorts of good things you want, and the great people here at Hy-Vee are going to take care of us. They needed over 1,000 volunteers to run this race, and rather than go around the area like they normally would to get people to come and help run this event, Hy-Vee just said, well, hey, we've got 93,000 employees. I think we could probably scrape together 1,000 people to come help. So every single volunteer you see at the track this weekend, everyone wearing one of these Hy-Vee shirts is a Hy-Vee employee. They just wanted to be a part of it. These employees are part owners of this business. Hy-Vee is an employee-owned company, and so for them, this is an event that means something to them. They're putting their heart and soul into it. You can see it all around the racetrack, guys, and this mobile grocery store here is just another way that they are making the race experience better for everybody here at Iowa Speedway.
Fantastic. We'll continue to tell you about how Hy-Vee is, I think, really placing the model for future NTT IndyCar events, especially on oval tracks.
Yeah, and if it's not too late, I'd like a pack of peanut M&Ms, James, family size. But we're going to check in with the fastest guy on the racetrack right now, Connor Daly, to see if we can get him. Hey, Connor, it's Townsend up in the booth. You got me? Connor Daly, NBC booth. You copy? That's a big negative.
The radio melted.
Broadcaster to broadcaster, that's quite a snub.
I think he's actually texting me from the car right now to get his order in for the mobile grocery store. He forgot some stuff for his bus.
All right, we'll keep working on the old CB radio in the booth and try it again. I just think it's remarkable that year after year he kind of just rolls out here super comfortable on the bumpy, ragged edge. Same thing at Gateway, loves that track on the short oval.
Remember, this is the first time he's been here with Ed Carpenter Racing. He was with Carlin Racing while he was driving for Ed on the road and street courses, and would do basically one-offs on the ovals and put it on pole a couple of years ago, really quick. Loves this place. He's been really good at Gateway, at Worldwide Technology Raceway outside St. Louis in the past.
Making maybe a spring or a damper change there to the right front. You wouldn't think you'd want to change anything. Like, look at how fast that race car is.
Mm-hmm.
But always tweaking, and it could be going from a qualifying to a setup situation, a race situation.
Except they can't make big changes between qualifying and the race. It's essentially an impound weekend. They can, change the angle
Tear-offs
of the wings
and ducks, swing angles, that sort of thing.
Yeah, but you can't make spring changes or gear changes or things like that. So let's talk championship now, where things stand. It's been Marcus Ericsson for a little while, but that was only after the Indianapolis 500. Look at the ebb and flow. 4 different drivers have been atop the championship lead this season. Will Power spent some time up there at the top. Alex Palou at one point was the championship leader. Ericsson and Power have gone back and forth, and this is where we stand.
Colton Herta had disappeared for a while after a pretty strong run at the Indy GP, and then comes back at Toronto with that solid P2 finish. But at the top, it's really, really tight. And that number 9 trajectory kicking north there at the time it counts every year. Dixon 5th in the championship. I think it's 44 points back, tied with Newgarden, 44 points out of the lead. Marcus Ericsson has a nice little buffer, but man, if I'm Ericsson, I got to be thinking Newgarden and Dixon, Dave, are going to be in the hunt, in the mix, going to the final round at Laguna Seca.
They're all chasing him. 35 points to the good this time over Power is not a lot with 7 races remaining, 2 this weekend. So ostensibly a double points weekend, and talking with drivers like Pato O'Ward, who's chasing the championship still. O'Ward, you can see 75 back there in 6th. He said, you got to go like this is a make it or break it weekend for your team. You can double point your way toward the front here. But for me, I've got to work harder than, let's say, Ericsson. Ericsson was so cool and calm when we talked to him as a group this morning about his championship and where he stands. He can hold back just a little bit. He doesn't have to take big risks. He doesn't have to go crazy and try to maintain that lead. It's a fine line, James Hinchcliffe, because he doesn't want to be uncompetitive, but he does have a lead to protect.
Yeah, it's a tough balance for sure for Marcus Ericsson right now. He's got to take care of himself. And speaking of take care of yourself, I'm out here in the campsite, guys, and if you're an IndyCar fan, you obviously watch the races, but maybe you watch some of the ancillary programs that come along with being a fan, whether that's the Speed Street podcast with Connor Daly and Joey Molinaro. Maybe it's Off Track with Hinch and Rossi. Or maybe you're a fan of the all-new phenomenon Bus Bros with Joseph Newgarden and Scott McLaughlin. Well, I'm out here in the camping lot, and I have found just those fans. This is the Dobson family, guys. They got quite a setup right here. Big-time IndyCar supporters. They've come to many races. First time here in Iowa. They are having a great time, as you can see. Connor Daly's jealous of this setup right here because it's still water and not covered in little gel beads. But they've been coming to IndyCar races for years. Mrs. Dobson here is from Iowa. They decided to come here and check out the race, and they're having a great time. And they are really hoping that Joseph and Scott McLaughlin show up at some point to give them, take a tour of their motorhome and, say hi for being such big fans of the show.
How about getting the driver of the 48 to come for a little splash?
I'm a little offended when we're throwing out podcasts. The longest standing IndyCar podcast with maybe someone that's on the broadcast? Come on, Hinch.
I think of you as a radio show. Forget you're a podcast, man. You're like a higher level of media than podcasts. You're so far above us, I don't even think about it like that. But of course, Trackside, we know that is the staple, the original ancillary programming from IndyCar. Kevin, you're the man for keeping it going for so long.
Hinch, how have you been able to document so many locations in 30 minutes without stealing a scooter?
Well, we have an array of golf carts that the NBC crew has provided in this crack group that we're rolling with. And we're not done, guys. We still have a few stops planned. So you just you keep an eye, because, right now we're just standing outside the back straight watching these guys go around and
go up to the wall. You are trackside right now.
I'm literally trackside. They have more Bus Bros fans off to my right. But you're standing here, and I'm loving this, guys. This is a great shot coming off of turn 2. It looks like they're going to run right through the fence at me where I'm standing. And what I'm loving right now is I'm seeing guys running all sorts of lines, Townsend. It is not taking a long time for these drivers to start experimenting with that second groove and really start getting racy here. And Jimmy Johnson's one of the guys hanging it up high on the outside of Dalton Kellett. I think this could be a great weekend for Jimmy if that sort of behavior keeps up.
On board with Jimmy in 3 and 4. No issues there.
I talked with Jimmy about the test that he had here quite a bit last weekend, and he said he felt pretty good. We saw how good he was in Texas, especially once the race got going. So let me ask you this, Townsend. After doing, I know these are all different tracks, but now he's done Texas, he's done Indianapolis. Iowa's very different, but is he more prepared this time around for this event than had this been the first oval of the season?
Oh, for sure. And let's just ride on board here for a couple laps, because you can really tell, like James pointed out, there goes Kyle Kirkwood in the 14. Jimmy looks really comfortable getting creative. And I will say this, there is no other Iowa on the schedule. There's nothing like this track on the schedule, but if you had to pick one, this is like a smaller Texas. And Jimmy had his best race of the season, easily his best IndyCar race by far of his career at Texas Motor Speedway earlier this year, where you're carefully but at the same time trying to use measured aggression to try out different lines and send it when it doesn't necessarily feel great, Dylan. And Jimmy Johnson is finding clean air in all kinds of places. If someone goes high, like this car in front of him, is that Callum Ilott? I think it might be. Jimmy's going to go low. If car goes low, Jimmy's going to go high. That might be Alex Palou.
And Townsend, to your point, the thing that Jimmy said to me earlier today was that he learned obviously a lot at Texas and Indy, but the thing that he liked about Texas was the ability to move around, the fact that there is 2 lanes, and that was something he was looking forward to about coming here as well, that he can move around, he can kind of self-medicate his car if need be and make it work to his liking. He's also excited too, the fact that there's 2 races this weekend, thinks that's really going to help him, hopes it helps him going into Sunday, just to have a full 250 laps under his belt, sleep on it, think about it, apply what he learned immediately the next day on Sunday. So Jimmy's confident and expects to have a good weekend this weekend.
And that was the 15 of Graham Rahal that was in front of Jimmy Johnson. Graham Rahal 3rd on the charts right now. So that's pretty encouraging for Jimmy. About halfway on tire life right now. 27 laps on Jimmy Johnson's tires. Pretty encouraging to be that racy this early in his first race weekend here.
There's a good look at 2 of the cars that people think will be good this weekend. Newgarden so fast in the test, and we've seen his history here. And a lot of people said Marcus Ericsson in the testing looked really, really good. That's him in the Husky Chocolate car up ahead. Newgarden's going to be able to get the run and make the pass there. You know, I know Alex Palou didn't feel like they were very strong in the test, but the other Ganassi teammates, I've spoken to the other three, and all thought, yeah, we're in pretty good shape. So it seems to be Alex that needs to do a little catching up from where they were. But Marcus said he thought the car was really good. Scott Dixon told me yesterday, yeah, I think we're in the window, maybe not quite where Penske is, but we're not too far off. And Jimmy felt pretty good about where things were at.
Well, and the Chip Ganassi team, going back to Texas, was so strong on ride control. That was their advantage, was just taking care of the tires, a really nice compliant race car. And as absolutely violent as the bumps are here, I know James says the driver says it's not much worse. I mean, to me, this looks noticeably bumpier than the last time IndyCar raced here. There is not a section of this track where you don't see the steering wheel taking a pretty significant hit coming through the tires back to the driver. Dave, what you got down there?
Townsend Pato Ward was fairly confident when I talked to him this morning about his weekend. Again, calling it a double points kind of weekend that you really need to take advantage of as you see him going around championship leader Marcus Ericsson here in practice. The one thing he did say, though, is you talked about the tire degradation. He said, here it is crazy. It goes off the cliff when you're done. He said you could be riding behind a person for 50 laps, and if that person has better tire care than you did during that 50 laps, the last 3 or 4 or 5, he said you can lose 2 or 3 seconds on the track. So it's just crazy how quickly it goes away here. And James Hinchcliffe, I know you have experienced that. Hopefully wherever you've gone to, you have not fallen off a cliff.
No, I'm not falling off a cliff, but I am standing up a little higher. I'm in the bed of a pickup truck here with an esteemed racing family that are fans this weekend. I'm here with Doug and Beth Poles cheering on Connor Daly, obviously, who's doing all right so far. And Doug, we'll start with you. Obviously, first time back here in a few years, but with what Hy-Vee's done, could you just give us your thoughts on the appearance of the place, the atmosphere so far at this race event?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Not just here, but the whole town. We were in the Hy-Vee store in town. It is like an IndyCar store. So really neat partnership. You just saw the store, which is cool. We've used that. But this place looks amazing. You know, this is Hy-Vee and Roger and IndyCar and everybody getting together to do this. It's Penske Entertainment's involved here, Hy-Vee's folks. We've got our ticketing team doing all the ticketing here. So it's been a team effort across the board.
Well, it's great. Obviously, it's great to hear that Penske Entertainment's as involved as they have been with partnering with Hy-Vee. Got the ticketing thing here, and obviously, you guys are cheering for Connor Daly. What are your? I know you're probably not a betting man necessarily. Maybe that's not fair. What do you think his odds are?
Hopefully, they're very good. I know he's really, really excited about that. Hard to. Joseph's something good here too. It's going to be interesting to see. I just hope they put on a great show for the fans because this is a great racetrack. We get to go to the biggest oval in the world, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, to come to the smallest one here. This is really cool.
And both of them are great shows. Now, hey, Mom, tell me, I know you're probably the most enthusiastic Connor Daly fan out there. Are we nervous watching him right now?
Well, I like it when he's in P1. I mean, that's easier, right? I mean, I have a lot of confidence in this track. He loves it. When the driver's good, the car's good, it's easier for me. When you're in the back and he's struggling, you know what it's like. It makes for a tough day. So, yeah, I'm excited. It's a tiny track.
Okay, I mean, you're a champion racer in your own right. So do you ever have to give him little tips, after your jet ski successes?
Well, let's see. On my helmet it said, be fast or be last. That's my tip, right?
There you go. Be fast or be last. I love it. Beth Poles, mother to Connor Daly, who's leading the charts right now, guys.
Is that like checkers or wreckers?
Very similar, yeah. With less crash damage expense, though, just being last.
I talked to Doug the other day. He was driving a jet ski trailer with Beth's jet ski on it. She had left to go coach her state championship team women's lacrosse program. This was about 8:30 at night. I mean, she's got a motor. I'll tell you, she's one of the hardest working ladies and moms. You'll find 4 boys. You saw Carter in the background sporting the stash, but I was trying to see if Beth was considering racing in the jet ski race at Nashville that I understand is going to be taking place. So I think she's considering it.
And what about Christian Daly, who does that?
Champion jet ski racer in his own right. So I think he might be there, in fact.
Here's David Malukas, who was quick again last weekend at Toronto, qualifying 5th, was running 5th or 6th. At one point, You know, and Hinch brought that up. Here's a 20-year-old challenging a two-time champion when he was right on Joseph Newgarden. And I know they lost some spots, I think, in a pit exchange on pit lane, but he ran pretty well.
A lot of the on the start, and I noticed on the restarts, it just seemed like some of the veterans were muscling Malukas around a little bit. You know, just getting to the inside of the braking zone, and then he was sort of hung out. He got freight trained by a couple of cars, did a great job to stay off the walls, not have any contact, and bring the car home. But I thought what was most telling, and one of the things I love about this young driver, is how transparent he is. And after the race, he said, I think I matured 20 years after that one race. He learned a ton. And I think the biggest learning is if you leave a door just cracked open on a street circuit or a short oval like Iowa, someone is going to force their way through at your expense. And that, I think, was a key lesson for Malukas there.
There's Rinus VeeKay in a very easy to spot Vinyl paint scheme, the orange this weekend for Ed Carpenter Racing, one of 3 cars that they have with the Boss. Ed also running. He's got some good pace here in the early going of practice.
Was that a Vinyl tractor that James started on? Beautiful orange program
Similar
to
color.
open the show.
Similar color.
Car's okay.
I like that.
That's what you want to hear on the box if you're an engineer. Is that sort of like car's okay, like car's great, or car's just okay?
It's a good
Can
question.
we make it better?
Or is it I brushed the wall, but car's okay?
There's probably that.
Yeah.
We'll scan the white wall and see if we see any evidence of a Firestone from the 21 going for a scuff. If it would have happened maybe right here at the exit of turn 2 where the camber rolls off. But, James, that wall is pristine clean.
And it's easy to tell this weekend because they have all been freshly painted. Look at all the sponsor logos here. Some B2B partnerships with Hy-Vee and just some new partners for this Hy-Vee race weekend. Dave, what you got?
Riding along with Colton Herta, your second place finisher from last weekend. What a strong weekend it was despite not getting the W. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about how quickly these races will go. 250 laps on Saturday afternoon, 300 on Sunday. And I've covered many things stock car around this track. This will be my first IndyCar weekend. And I was wondering how quickly it goes. And I've been told to a person, it'll go by so fast, you look down, you won't believe it, they've run 100 laps. So I asked veteran Scott Dixon how it is from the cockpit. And maybe, Townsend, you've heard this too or can relate. It's chaos, he said. You don't know where you are. You're passing people. People on older tires, people on newer tires are passing you. The pit cycles are happening. You really don't know where you are until they inform you late in the race what's happening. But it is chaotic all the way around. That's fun for the fans to watch, but a bit distracting maybe for the drivers as they try to navigate this place.
Yeah, I think of all racetracks, Dave, this is the one where you trust the team implicitly. Like, just go drive fast, pass as many cars as you can, and let us know what the car is handling like. Let us handle the strategy because it's all over the place. And up in the booth, we'll be taking notes as furiously as we can to try to keep track of when cars are pitting, where they sit on their tire stints, and where this race really gets interesting. We don't always get it, but where it really gets fun is a caution with, say, 20 to go, and drivers opting either to take tires, to not take tires, and see how that plays out at the end.
Just look at the telemetries. I call them the marching ants that we see to see where someone is at on the track. How quickly they get around this place. Here's a good look at Ed Carpenter this weekend in the Alzamend colors, one of Todd Alt's endeavors.
And here's why this place is so cool. Connor Daly's quick time is 173 mile-an-hour lap. Connor Daly's circulating the track right now, doing everything he can to maximize time, and he's going 157. So that is 16 miles an hour slower than what he did on new tires. And that huge delta, and that's average speed, and that huge delta in speed is why this is such a fascinating race, depending on where cars are in their tire life.
Different look for the 10 car of Alex Palou this weekend. Ridgeline Lubricants. We've seen that on Ericsson's car earlier this season. So that's Alex Palou. And maybe this is the news portion of the program. We'll update you on what we've learned and what we've heard this weekend. Our Nate Ryan chatted with Alex this morning, and he told Nate and a group of other reporters that he no longer is able to download the data and the intel from home like he had been previously, so now he needs to come to the racetrack. So they kind of shut off that level of communication. And then the other thing that I found interesting that the Associated Press reported today is that Zach Brown is confirming that he had not seen the contract before with Ganassi, so he's going by, hey, I was told he's available, so we signed him. It's up to Alex on that other part. And also, the Associated Press is writing this afternoon, Jenna Fryer reporting from Zach Brown that they are not interested in buying out the contract from Chip Ganassi Racing. So if that is needed, if that contract is solid with Ganassi, it's going to be up to Alex and his management group to negotiate that and navigate that.
I smell green, lots of it, flowing somewhere from driver to team or driver to lawyers. Something's going to have to get sorted out, because just the simple fact that they've shut off the remote communication for Alex Palou in the middle of the season, I mean, they sent in a pretty strong message. Hey, we're not thrilled with what's going on right now. So, wonder, Dylan, if you know any more down there.
I don't about that, but I thought it was interesting in kind of keeping with the theme of him getting cut off from viewing that data at home. You know, he made the comment to us today that he struggles on ovals and specifically at tracks like this because he just doesn't have the experience to know what he wants from the car. You know, he says on road courses, that's my background. I know what I need the race car to do. But on ovals and on a track like this that has so much character, so many bumps, he said, I struggle because I just don't know what I want the car to do. So Hinch was standing there giving him some tips today and kind of trying to help him learn, and he obviously made the comment too that he's watched a lot of film just trying to pick up anything he can, but his job just maybe got a lot tougher too because now he can't study the data at home. He can still access it at the racetrack, but can't study like he wants to, and that may make his job even more difficult here this weekend as he tries to get a grip with this race car.
It's interesting. I wonder if that means for sure we think our driver's leaving one way or the other, therefore we're going to shut off access as Alexander Rossi takes a peek again at the inside of Palou. Or if it's just sending the message, hey, we don't know, therefore we're shutting you down until this gets sorted out.
Could be that.
Yeah.
I still think it's going to be difficult to put the genie back in the bottle and for him to return to the 10 next year. But they may have gotten through the hardest part just getting through last weekend.
But how long is on the other end of that deal, on the other end of the trade, how long does Zach Brown and McLaren, do they wait in an unknown situation? Are they 100% confident that this guy's going to be on their team, or do they need to start working on contingency plans in case it all falls apart?
Well, that's the luxury that they have with the contract with Felix Rosenqvist. And I chatted with Felix again today, and he said I had a big heart-to-heart with Zach this week. And, you know, it kind of sounds like he's still being told, plan on being in Formula E, but I said, is anything definitive at this point? And he said no, and he still doesn't know a timetable for when he's going to know for certain. But that's an awfully good backup plan. They're set in IndyCar. Now, they do have to make some plans in Formula E. If Rosenqvist is not going to be in that car, they need to find a driver there, because I think, obviously, their ultimate plan is they would like to put Rosenqvist in Formula E and Alex Palou on the IndyCar program.
Yeah, but if Felix Rosenqvist keeps performing like he did at Detroit, had a very strong weekend there, was awesome at Mid-Ohio before the mechanical failure. Right now, Felix Rosenqvist is 9th and just 32 points back of Pato O'Ward. So in a few more races, who's to say that Rosenqvist isn't ahead of Pato O'Ward if he keeps this momentum up, and all of a sudden that difficult decision is even more challenging, Dave?
Always fun to hear from Felix, and he wanted to talk about this race as well, because Townsend, I don't know if you've ever had a track where you go a few times and then you just come away and go, you know what, I need a different approach. And Felix has been here 3 times, and he said, I need to rethink this race. This was prior to coming to the Speedway this weekend. So I asked him specifically what that was, since he hasn't done in his mind as well as he's done at other places in terms of improvement. He said, I need to be more proactive with line choices. I need to read the other drivers better. I need to manage my tire deck better. I just need a better, bigger picture of what's going on around me. So I don't know if you've ever had that happen, Townsend, but coming in with a completely different way of looking at this race after not having been up to his own standards the last 3 times.
Well, whatever he's doing right now, I mean, he's 7th on the charts, O'Ward's down in 13th. So, you know, the question is not so much what can you do over one lap here. I mean, somebody like Rosenqvist knows full well, I need a race car that's going to perform second half of the stint. And James, I'd be curious, if you can chime in on this, if you think it's more important to put, say, 90% of your focus into second half balance as opposed to qualifying and first half of stint performance.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately what makes the difference here, Townsend. You know, qualifying up front is always nice in an IndyCar race, but if there's one race where I'm not too stressed out about starting outside the top 10, it's right here. Because we know it's a two-lane racetrack and because we know the tire degradation, the strategy involved, you can move your way up. We watched Simon Pagenaud do it from last on the grid. So, you know, for me, I'm focusing on my race car and I'm trying to make sure that it's good, like you say, from that second half onwards. And what that often means is that for the first sort of 10 laps of a new tire stint, your car might not actually be that good. You might be a little bit too low on right heights, bottoming. You might be a little bit of an imbalance, but you've got a lot of tools in the race car, front and rear bar normally to adjust. You have the weight jacker that can obviously adjust the weight across the front axle and adjust the handling. So at a place like this, you're doing a lot of work over the stint because normally we talk about, you know, whether it's Texas or Indianapolis, maybe at one end of the racetrack, you're making adjustments for the other end. Maybe in clean air versus dirty air. You're doing all that here at Iowa, but you're also throwing in a tremendous amount more aggressive tire degradation, and you're also doing it over such a short lap. I think you're only going straight on the back straight for about 3 seconds. The front straight's not even straight. So you have to come off of a corner, in your head think, okay, what did it just do in that corner? What balance adjustment do I need to make to fix that? Actually do that in about a 3-second span. So sometimes it takes you 2 or 3 laps to really assess the change you want to make and implement it inside the race car. So these guys are working really hard, but it is all about making sure you still have that relative pace in the second half, because that's when things can really go sideways. If these tires fall off a cliff, your lap time can just sink like a rock.
Good stuff there. Watching McLaughlin's hands here. 45 laps complete. Not sure if that's all on the same set of tires.
Be smart if you get to him.
But let's take a look at average runs right now. That was kind of crazy. Look at the 20-lap averages, though. There's Dixon. Chip Ganassi Racing Power really close with Dixon on 20-lap average. Harvey, he's been strong here before, but that comes at a very good time at the High V race in the High V car, and with Graham Rahal 4th on the speed chart so far.
So that's one of the questions I had for Hinch, and you know, I kind of joked with Jack this weekend about a lot of pressure representing High V this weekend. Hinch, you've done that. You were in the Genesis car at a Genesis-sponsored race at Texas Motor Speedway. Did it have the same kind of feels like when you race in Toronto, that you're kind of the center of attention and there's a lot asked of you?
You know, unfortunately for me, that happened in 2020, so there wasn't much of anything going on.
Yeah, that's right.
Not a lot of fans, not a lot of sponsor interaction at the time, unfortunately. But no, it's always extra pressure and a little extra motivation. I mean, you can't walk pretty much anywhere in the state of Iowa without seeing Jack Harvey's face on the side of something, whether it's, you know, billboards or grocery stores, buses, is everywhere it seems to be. So, you know, I know that he hasn't had the season that he wanted, but we saw a big resurgence from this team last week in Toronto. And Graham Rahal right now, he's running well. We know that he's run well here in the past, so fingers crossed the 45 can have a strong race, because, yeah, it would definitely go over well here in Newton.
We had a good laugh with Jack earlier today, didn't we? Because he would see his face in the stores and just be wearing a T-shirt, and then someone would come up to him, a fan, and would say, hey, you're him. And Jack would open his mouth with his British accent, and they would kind of give him that, hey, you're not from around here, look, are you?
There's Jack Harvey sitting on pit lane from just a few moments ago. Let's listen to some of their communication.
Have you been watching Graham at all? Is he running a similar line to us, or is he running higher than we are?
I'd say Graham has about the same line as we do there in 1 and 2. He's earlier in 3 and way higher in 4.
That's Bob Perona, the second voice you heard, who is the spotter, so he's got the look from up high. And a different look for Graham Rahal this weekend. High Rock Vodka. That's Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s brand. With his wife Amy, I believe, and they are a partner in the Rahal Letterman Lanigan group.
Dale and his wife for High Rock Vodka?
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's their vodka company.
Yeah.
I didn't get my sample. but I borrowed someone else's that didn't take theirs home.
Somehow I can see you Florida Georgia line tomorrow night with a sample.
That's possible.
Let's make that happen.
I've got a Monday flight. I'm thinking Sunday afternoon. I'm in. This is Simon Pagenaud, who went from last to first last time around. Started in the back in both races, got up to the front, but won the first one in a Penske car. What's different for him now, shifting over to Meyer-Shank Racing?
And he was on that top 20 average list. I think I saw him maybe 6th or 7th, and it could be updating as we speak. Should be updating as we speak. But looked pretty comfortable.
Keep running.
Nope, looked like he was going to lift out and come in, and they told him to keep running. He's saying too late. Let's see if he stays out here. Not quite sure what the communication was there, what went wrong, but team wanting more information on the racetrack. Now coming to pit lane as Jack Harvey goes by on the high side. But Pagenaud 13th on the charts right now at a 169.5, and there you see the entertainment the rest of the weekend. Gwen Stefani. I mean, the biggest names in country music are here, Kev.
Well, not all country music. It's Gwen Stefani. This is not country, and the country bands.
She's married in the country now.
Yeah, so she's versatile. But I would say these country bands, these are young country bands. So this is a little bit of something for everyone this weekend. But it's 4 headliners, and these are Central Times for this weekend. So if you're in the area, it's a pretty easy drive from Indianapolis.
That's the one I want to see. Florida Georgia line. Saturday night. Those guys look like they have a real good time.
And you never know, there might be a cameo in these shows on Sunday. So I was at a big country concert many years ago that Tim McGraw was playing at. And this is kind of when we got the word, oh, as Faith Hill walked on stage, oh, they're a couple now. So you never know. You never know. They'll be on the front stretch, the front straightaway. It's always amazing
that
how quickly they build these stages.
Yeah. Super Bowl style, they'll be rolling that thing out.
Yep. You can get it done in 15 minutes or so. All right, Dave, tell us what you got.
Just over 30 minutes left in this only practice session before qualifying tomorrow, Kevin. And the 27 car for Alex Rossi has been on pit road for quite a while now. Listen.
Lethal. Yeah, let's super loose off of 4. Getting ridiculous.
Loose off of 4, not something you want. And with the limited time here, and Townsend kind of the compromise setup, if you will, you have to throw it at. You're not doing all, mean qualifying runs or all race runs. You want to maximize this time, but you don't want something that's going to throw you off, such as being loose as he was off of turn 4.
Yeah, that's always a get your attention moment as Scott Dixon is circulating. I just wanted to go on board here. He's got a couple cars, traffic in front, but let's just ride for a few laps like we like to enjoy on the street and road courses and just watch the master work here.
All around, still by 10. Car coming out. All clear.
David Malukas in the number 18 car in front of Dixon, but pretty clear as Rinus VeeKay goes to the inside. Pretty clear that Dixon is super comfortable running mid to high line at both ends of the track, using less steering to run a bigger radius, and looks smooth.
So is he running up there because that's where he likes to be, or might he still think it's faster getting down to the bottom, but I need to learn to see what the difference is and if I can run up there.
Could be those two reasons. It could be that he knows that he's going to experience less tire wear, running a bigger radius, putting less steering in the car, so that's going to be better over the long haul. Could be that he finds it just smoother all the way around in terms of the line. But a whole number of reasons, but you wouldn't want to second guess what Scott Dixon does at practice at a place like this to dial in his race car. Let's check in with Dave.
And of course, he wants every bit of information he can get. Townsend, back to the story I led with today, has not won here. And he talked about the bizarre circumstances that led to a couple of the different times when he had a fast race car, perhaps a winning race car here, but it didn't go his way. One year leading, coming to a final restart, the steering froze on the car. He was weaving his tires back and forth before green, and the shaft froze. They had to bring it to pit lane, sprayed it up, off he went, didn't win the race. He said one other time, the belts may or may not have come a little loose on me, and I kept going, but there was no way he was going to stay in the competitive mode there. So weird circumstances for this driver who has so many starts here, but has not yet seen victory lane.
By the way, just saw Pato Award and Alex Palou turn good laps to move up into the top 3. And from now on, pit stops will be hot stops, meaning crew members need to have helmets on. They can simulate fueling, so you'll be basically seeing pit stop practice, but laps will continue.
You saw Dixon strapping on a brand new sticker set of Firestone, so have to keep an eye on what he can do, presumably with a qual sim run. Graham Rahal, 5th overall right now. Last lap 149 miles an hour. 49 laps in this run. Got to figure 49 laps on the tires. Dixon ran 60 laps so far today. That's about a stint under green flag conditions. But you can just hear the hesitation in the throttle there. That's what you're going to have to do at the end of a tire run to manage traction at 130 miles an hour coming off the corner.
And one of the big keys is who does manage the Firestones the best. We've seen races here where drivers are begging to get to pit lane by the time they get into the 40s. And sometimes if you can, because there's enough fuel to go, well, I'm trying to remember, I think you can go beyond 80 laps on fuel, but it's needing new tires. But if somehow you can manage the tire deg, it opens up some options.
Yeah, I mean, it's traditionally a 3-stop race. Some people go for a 4-stop or try to do it on pace, but on a 3-stop race, you'll need to do 61, 62 lap stints to spread out those 4 stints over the 3 stops on the 250 lap race.
And then a different race on Sunday with 300 laps. Dave.
And guys, you would think a couple of those stops, based on history, are going to be under green flag conditions. So that's a little bit of pressure on these teams. And Townsend and Hinshaw, I was going to ask you guys, have you sensed that at this place where the pit boxes they're 40 feet long, so that's the normal standard size, but as things go so quickly here, we talked about how Dixon described the chaos in the cockpit, and you said, Townsend, you just drive. You let them call the strategy. Is there more pressure on these teams knowing that the laps click by so quick when you come down pit road at pit road speed and stop for a stop?
Well, I think for pit communication, there's a lot of pressure to get that right, just because you can go blowing by your pit entry so easily, and if there's any indecision, you can quite easily miss the pit in, or if you're in the middle of a 2-3 wide situation, it's really hard to get to that decel lane, to get to the box. But I think the biggest thing is this is a crapshoot, this race, because on a short oval, you really don't want to pit until you have to protect against the yellow coming out, because you can lose 2 laps quite easily just pitting under green here. So you're going to want to stay out as long as you can, as long as you can hang on, and it's going to be up to your team to watch how slow you're forced to get just on tire wear, and for them to decide when's the right time to come to pit lane.
Yeah, you may be able to eliminate a pit stop, or you want to watch out for the yellow, but if you're losing 3 seconds a lap, you may find yourself a lap down just based on pace. And I think it's another reason. So you might say qualifying is not that important here, because Simon Pagenaud won from last. Dixon was a lap down, came back to finish second a couple of years ago. But Townsend, if you start in the back and your car's not great at the beginning, what is it, like lap 7 or 8, you might get lapped.
Well, if you're starting at the back, that means that your car's not great at the beginning and even worse at the end. And one of the things about this race at Iowa is we hear in this race probably more times than any other track a driver saying, I can't hang on, I'm about to crash, and the team responding, hang in there, we just need a few more laps. James, you've been in that situation, I'm sure. It's miserable as a driver where you're literally telling your team, guys, we're about to spend $500,000 in crash damage and I might go to the hospital, and they're telling you, yeah, 10-4, just try to hang on for 10 more laps.
Yeah, just a few more. It's like, no, that's not what I said. But what's so funny about those situations, Townsend, is you don't know what the other cars on track are doing. So you might be out there saving your life thinking you're about to crash every time you turn the wheel, but they might come on and say, hey, for the drivers on the same tire life as you, you're pulling away. Your lap times are good, so just hang on to it, which is easy to say from the pit stand, but as a driver, yeah, that's the big challenge, is sometimes knowing that even though it feels absolutely terrible from behind the wheel, everybody that you're racing with, everyone on your strategy, they actually feel worse. So that's one of the things that the drivers sort of have to get around, and like you said, really trust the teams at this place.
And I assume you want to know that, because I often just hear the short answer of just hang on a few more laps. Do you want the full story? Can you process that while you're doing what Papa Ward is doing right here?
Oh, it definitely takes some of the urgency out of needing to pit if you know that as much as you're struggling, other guys are in a worse situation. So for sure, that information is really helpful, and it can help sort of keep you calm in those situations when you're just white-knuckling the thing around here.
It's a great point, because looking through the list of strategists, it reminded me to think about who are the former racing drivers on the radio coaching their drivers, as opposed to, engineers or management. And I think that's a really good point, James, because you need a therapist in those situations. And you need a therapist to say, hey, you're not alone. You're not the only one dealing with this. Don't feel like you're on an island here. A lot of people are in the same situation. And that's a really subtle but I think critical distinction between sort of the background of the strategist. In those situations, I think former drivers really get what the person on the other end of the line needs to hear.
Let's hear from Dylan now.
And Alex Palou, who you see right there in that green car this weekend, they're on a long run right now. And here was some radio a little bit ago about just the track conditions and the lines that they're trying to use in that car.
Power short on the high line in 1, 2, and 3, 4. New guard. Clear. The difference when they come off the corner.
Copy. I'll try now.
So he's talking about watching Will Power and Joseph Newgarden's lines and trying to apply that to his car. And again, on a long run right now, but seems to have worked. He's jumped up the leaderboard. He sits third right now. And remember, they came into this weekend, Alex did, and felt like after their test that they didn't even have a winning car. They were just going to try to finish in the top 10. So I think there's some encouraging signs from that 10 car that they're as good as they are right now.
Alex Palou was one of those that didn't come in, it didn't sound like, with a great deal of confidence. So getting up to third quick in this session shows they're making some progress, I think. Romain Grosjean, one of those that is new here. Remember, this track was not on the schedule last year during his rookie season. Now, he wasn't doing the ovals, with the exception of doing Worldwide Technology Raceway late in the year, where he was very, very impressive. So don't discount Grosjean from being a player today if they find the right setup on this weekend as well. So team-wise, Townsend, what are we seeing? How are the Andretti's looking so far? Looks like Colton Herta in 11th is the quickest Andretti car.
Yeah, they look pretty decent. Maybe not as strong as they want to be, but it's so hard to just read into the one-lap performance. I mean, Scott Dixon, we saw, was on stickers. I just saw him drag around for a couple laps to find a gap, and now he's going to send it, I think, in anger on this lap. That went 165 for Dixon. So, right now, I'd say the Ganassi cars, we saw Jimmy Johnson earlier in the session. We saw the 20th lap average performance from Dixon. I still think Ganassi looking really good. Palou just popped up there. Ericsson's in 4th. Dixon coming to pit lane. Maybe he wasn't that happy with the balance at speed. This was just moments ago, so like the back end started to release in 4 in a pretty big way. Dixon's hands fighting to save it, but you've got 2 teammates, 3rd and 4th. Here's the onboard at that moment. Maybe just a little too light on downforce.
And Jimmy Johnson, by the way, had been at the back. He was 26th quick a few minutes ago when I looked. Now he's 8th quick. He's dropped a couple here, but I think he was 6th just a moment ago. So
yeah,
Jimmy is getting more comfortable. And Will Power to the top. In the Verizon colors for Team Penske. So you got Chevy, the top 3 right now. Honda, who I think had 7 of the top 8 finishers last weekend in Toronto for their first win outside of the 2 races in Indianapolis. Still a nice mix in there at this point.
But team-wise, Kevin, back to your question, it really seems like you're going to have Ganassi and Penske, as always here, battling it out. And then, you know, we talk about the big 3. It's really the big 4 now with the Arrow McLaren team. And this guy, Pato O'Ward, his teammate Felix Rosenqvist, every single track we go to now, they're a factor. They're there on pace. Whether that's at Indy, at a street circuit, at a road course where they were trying to convince us, yeah, we're still not that great, but they put it on pole at Mid-Ohio, super strong at Barber. So every single kind of racetrack, this team is pushing Ganassi and Penske in the top 5, and Andretti.
Well, they were really strong here a couple of years ago. Both cars, Pato O'Ward and Oliver Askew, finished on the podium, was strong in both of those races. So that was with the Arrow screen, so some of it should transfer.
Goes Pato to the high side of Jimmy Johnson.
Look at Dalton Kellett in the K-Line Insulators car for A.J. Foyt Racing. 2 cars this weekend. The 11 car is not here. We had hoped to see J.R. Hildebrand, but the rocket funding has hit a snag, so that impacts J.R., who's been great at this track in the past. Dalton is in his first IndyCar race here, but finished 2nd in a Pro Mazda race. His best finish in that series back in 2015, and finished on the podium in Indy Lights in 2017 here. And much of his success in Indy Lights was on the oval, so we'll see how the Foyt cars look this weekend. Callum Eilert behind him there. New experience. He's been so impressive as a 1-car team with Juncos Hollinger on the road and street courses. Is this a bigger ask to do it as a rookie on this type of place?
Oh, it's huge for sure. As Callum Eilert is figuring out that you can be racing a car in front of you, trying to find clear air, working on it, then you check up, and then all of a sudden a guy like this, Jimmy Johnson, comes blowing right by. But I'm really encouraged to just see that battle for a few laps with Kellett and Eilert, just to see this, that you're going to find cars running mid-track to high line. You're going to find cars running low. It seems like this is a 2 or 3 groove racetrack early on in practice, which is really encouraging for a great race tomorrow and Sunday as Jimmy starts to sneak by on the high side.
Yeah, Dalton's backed out of it now, but he was still at pace when Jimmy made that move. That is encouraging. And we have reason to be encouraged, because as the caution comes out, and it is for a track inspection, no crash, just a track inspection. The racing here has been really good the last few years. It's why, frankly, the IndyCar community is thanking Hy-Vee for getting this race back on the schedule. It's one that no one wanted to see go away. It was business reasons. So you have to figure out a way to make it work commercially. And what Hy-Vee is doing this weekend with all of their partners, and what Penske Entertainment is doing to help as the promoter of this event, essentially it's a track rental this weekend, this might be the path forward to open up some new options for the schedule.
I'll tell you what, when we first started coming here, you could tell that this main grandstand, it sort of looked almost like phase 1, like, hey, there's room to grow. And it's really cool what Hy-Vee's done with the terrace grandstand seating and the suites that James profiled earlier. It's almost like they're continuing the original vision of this racetrack to start to build things all the way around. I mean, who knows? In 10 years' time, could build this thing and see grandstands all the way around. But these are just gorgeous, and it takes your breath away when you've come here for a few years and you come pulling in. You realize the investment that Hy-Vee's made, all of their employee owners at the company, to really embrace this amazing racetrack. Hinch, where are you?
Well, yeah, I mean, you talk about that investment. It's just the mindset that Hy-Vee has when they've come to promote this race. So let's go down the checklist. Let's promote the heck out of it around town. Check. All right, let's build brand new hospitality suites in Turn 1 and Turn 4. Check, no problem. Let's make the camping experience better by having a mobile grocery store. Absolutely done. What else can we do to make this event even better? Well, believe it or not, Hy-Vee have their own. You see it behind me here. It's the Disaster Relief Command Center. This is something that they bring to areas that have been affected by some sort of tragedy, be it natural disaster or something else. They can help with grocery deliveries. They can also help with pharmaceutical deliveries. They're actually a registered pharmacy in all 50 states. So they had this unit. They thought, well, what can we do here at the IndyCar track? This also is a potable water generator. So all of the water that is going to the hospitality units, to the campers, everything that you're drinking here on site is being created right here. These guys just don't stop. If there was something they could do, they're doing it and then some. So they have just been an incredible partner. Their first crack here as the title sponsor of this racetrack. And guys, they're really setting the bar. This is another example of a really, really impressive lineup of things they are doing to increase the experience for the fans and everybody here.
How about this, Hinch? If in the little portable convenience store you went to a little while ago with Hy-Vee, if you didn't find what you need, you can basically DoorDash it. There's a partnership with DoorDash. You can go to HyVeeDeals.com and order something from their store, and they'll have it here at the track within 2 hours, bringing it to a specific location. I'm not sure if they'll actually bring it to, say, Lot 27 in the campsite, but they'll bring it here to the grounds, and that does include beer. So if you run short, HyVeeDeals.com is your place to go to restock at any time this weekend.
All right, Townsend, you go on and put an order in for us, all right?
Already done. Did it an hour ago. I understand we had a local visitor here. Is that of the feline variety? Or
that's good pace.
More bunny ears. Fox.
Oh.
Not the first time. Where else was that? Detroit? We had a fox on the track?
Good ups. That's a good vertical.
Guy's been sipping on some dew.
Of course, the basketball commentator says good ups.
And he's opted for more. He just came back from the safer barrier backside, back out on the track. So
thus we have a track inspection to try to escort the little fella off the property. But what have we learned so far?
What have we learned?
Yeah.
Well, we've learned that there's nothing Hy-Vee hasn't thought of at this racetrack. Let's go down and check in with Dylan.
So here's a look at Kyle Kirkwood, and Will Power went to the top of the board. This was the radio communication on Will's lap to Kyle just a moment ago.
Power just did a 18.5, never was closer than a foot of the yellow line 9 through turn 1 and 2. And then for turn 3 and 4, barely got down and started opening up with really late turn-ins.
And I think that last part was the key, the really late turn-in, the big arc. And Hinch, I know that's something that you pointed out to a couple guys in our media availability earlier today. It's all about that wide entry, using the banking to kind of help the car turn and then running it down the hill. So this is Kyle's first time here in any capacity. Didn't run any of the Road to Indy cars here, and made his first laps here in an Indy car in the test just a few weeks ago. So learning and absorbing everything he can, even from the guys who are fastest right now. Dave.
Dylan, while Alex Palou has run 102 laps in this practice, the most of any driver. Among those that run the fewest, Colton Herta at 60. Let's listen to his radio, see if we can get a little insight as to why.
Back off, back off. Everybody's backing off behind you. Let's just go real slow here.
Yeah, but a car comes out right here now. I don't even know if it's worth doing this for lap time and stuff. You should probably just focus on race cars. It's too busy.
Busy, busy, busy. Townsend Hinch, I don't know if you've been there before on this track, but if there may just be a time, James, to simply pull your driver in, do a couple tweaks on the car, because the traffic, it's not I-80 traffic, but the traffic at Iowa Speedway can be a little dense.
Yeah, you thought 25 cars on the streets of Toronto was tough. 26 around the 7/8 of mile oval here at Iowa can be even tougher, but it's not as tough for this man, Alex Palou, as it was at the test. I just spoke with Barry Wanzer on the 10 stand, and he said Alex is much happier than when he left this test here a few weeks ago. He said, I am really, really glad that we did that test. Over 180 laps for this car at the test. That really allowed him to learn quite a bit. He said there's no way we could have gotten all that in just a 90-minute practice session before qualifying. So this is one driver that's really benefiting from having tested here and letting it marinate. You know what that's like, Townsend. You go to a place, you kind of let it marinate, you sleep on it, you get a chance to think at it, look at the data, and then you come back in a much stronger position. And that's what's happening right here with the reigning champ.
It's so much great information to take advantage of for Palou with teammates Dixon and Erickson and Johnson. And I think between those three drivers, three pretty different banks of knowledge to draw off of, Kevin. I mean, you saw the creativity from Jimmy Johnson earlier in practice, experimenting with all the lines, but all of his years of NASCAR experience, certainly there's some kind of key aspects to be gleaned from that. Then with Scott Dixon, most experienced driver in the race here, and has done so well. Despite not winning, he certainly knows how to set up the race car. So if you're Palou, you're just loving all of that information that you can soak up after a test, go back, study, ask a ton of questions, and then piece it all together and bring it back on Friday practice here, and so far so good.
Are you physically worn out? You know, you're seeing how much his hands are moving, and Hinch can jump in on this too. What is the physical level? I can remember Will Power after one of these races one year telling me it felt like I've been doing curls for an hour and a half. What's it like, Hinch?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why I love these onboard shots right now, because you're seeing how much the steering wheel is moving in these drivers' hands in the corner. And what's important to remember is these guys are cornering at over 3 Gs, so that steering wheel is almost as heavy as it's going to be anywhere on the calendar through these corners. And it's bumpy, and it's trying to rip out of your hands, and you only have about 3 seconds to breathe in between the corners. The G load is actually so high here that human lungs can't expand at that G load. So you've got to hold your breath going into turn 3 here, and then coming off of 4, you can exhale, get a couple breaths in before you take a big drag in heading into turn 1. So from a physicality standpoint, it's one of the toughest races because the G's are high, the steering loads are high, and the amount of rest you get is almost non-existent. Add into the fact we're supposed to see high 90-degree temperatures tomorrow for 250 laps. These drivers are going to be absolutely gassed.
Yeah, just taking the G-Fort levels, 3.2, and that's on race trim. On a qual sim, I think you're going to be pushing close to 4 Gs in the corners. And here's the other thing, guys, just doing the very rough math. If you think about a 20-mile-an-hour bleed off when the tires are new to the end of the stint, over a 60-lap stint, that's an average of just over 0.3 of a second per lap. The race car never feels the same one lap from the next. So mentally, it's exhausting because you're constantly having to reacclimate. What worked on the last lap will not work on the next lap, and on and on and on it goes as it just follows that downward trajectory of a 20-mile-an-hour fall off. There's no other racetrack that we go to where that happens.
And on top of that, Townsend, you're so affected by the cars in front of you. Your car might do one thing on the bottom one lap, but the next lap, not only is it not going to do the same thing on the bottom, you might be forced to go to the top lane because the car in front of you takes the bottom. So you really have to know and be able to predict what it's going to do each end of the track in each lane, changing lap after lap.
Dylan, go ahead.
Rinus VK, who you see right there, sits 10th right now on the leaderboard. Here was some more radio from him talking about track conditions out there and the lines he's trying to work.
Hold the wall more into 1, arc down in, and then run your regular line down to a slightly late clipping point. Run down to the clipping point in the middle of 3-4, but you can start opening your hands sooner if you need to carry the speed. We're still kind of pinchy off of 4 right now.
And it's so much information, right? And Rinus said this today, too. He said, when I was here in 2020, I just wasn't prepared for it. I was a little wilder as a driver. I was a rookie. There was so much information coming to me that I didn't know how to handle it. So he's excited to get back here now this weekend and have a doubleheader. Much more experience just as an IndyCar racer in general, and feels like he's going to be able to manage all the information he's getting and that he needs to get and turn that into a successful weekend here.
$20 if any of you guys can translate pinchy into Dutch. That was Lee Bentham on the radio saying a little pinchy coming off turn 4. I know what he means, but I don't know if a young Dutch driver that's still coming to grips with IndyCar oval racing. But what he means is that he's not opening his hands up early enough, so he's coming off the corners and basically at the exit, basically making another turn as he's coming up towards the wall, pinching the car off and not freeing things up at the exit. And kind of classic D-oval driving technique, James. You can speak to this. You want a high, late turn in to come to a clipping point, or late apex very late in turn 2, where in 3 and 4 you're turning into the rounded part of the D, so you can fade a little bit earlier and release your hands off a little earlier, but you don't want to have to make effectively a third turn, which is pinching the exit of 4.
Yeah, and that was, as we were watching, a huge save there from Jimmy Johnson, who had to check up behind the back. I think that's Connor Daly. You saw he lost all air off the car, got super loose, but great save from JJ there. No, yeah, the other thing, Townsend, that Lee said was you got to hold the wall a little bit more on entry. And what he means by that is just you want to follow the curvature of this wall on the front straight a little bit longer. Don't turn in too early. One of the keys to speed here at Iowa is a late, slow turn in. You don't only want to turn in as late as possible. You don't want to rush down to the bottom of the racetrack, to the apex, or the clipping point, I think he was calling it, which seems like a harder thing to understand for a guy that speaks Dutch than apex, but that's neither here nor there. So yeah, hold on to the wall a little bit. That late turn in, that's what Joseph Newgarden is so good at around here. That's what someone like Ryan Hunter-Reay was so good at. He was another king of the short tracks, and that's one of the huge keys to speed here. So something that Rinus just needs to work on. But it shows you how valuable the information from these spotters can be as we look at the replay now with Jimmy Johnson here.
See what happened to Jimmy right up the back of
Scott McLaughlin.
I think that's McLaughlin in the Freightliner car. And when you're right up the back of another car at Iowa on used tires on the same line, it's a ton of dirty air, big downforce void, and the car just got light and started to swirl around. Here's what James was talking about, and this was the advice coming from the spotter, Lee Bentham, to VK. He was encouraging, I'm going to be dramatic, is kind of follow that line so that you're starting as high as possible, get as much lateral radius as you can on the corner, and then work and use all of the banking to your benefit there to run high and wide, and then tighten it up so that the moment you get to the apex where the banking rolls off, you're unwinding your hands. If you turn in early, you're trying to keep the car loaded as the banking rolls off in turn 2, and that's never good. Always going to run out of road in that situation.
Restart on the back stretch. That's why they're slowing down, it looks like.
Well, that's good info. Helio Castroneves, last time here, it went well. He won in 2017. And Helio, at that time, it's been a little while since he had won, so this was very significant for Castroneves. By the way, on Sunday, if he starts both races, that'll be 369 starts for Castroneves. He would tie A.J. Foyt for third most IndyCar starts. Mario Andretti, 407. Tony Kanaan, 388, and counting.
Helio backed out there with a little moment in turn 4 maybe, or just trying to find some clear track. See what's going on with Newgarden here. Rosenquist in front. Rosenquist is checked up behind Ed Carpenter, and Newgarden. Bold practice move.
That was going to be what I was asking. Is that a bit bold for practice? We're talking about practice, Townsend.
As long as it works out, it's never too bold.
Okay.
Until it doesn't. Now the issue here, seen this in the past, is we've had over an hour of practice, is just the marble and the tire dust buildup that accumulates on the high line, and that's why I think you can see Newgarden just trying to stay 1 inch above the car to the inside, not an inch more than he needs to, because he doesn't want to get up into that gray, into the marbles, and into that dust. James, how bad does that build around here? I mean, we've seen issues in the past where guys get high and get caught out, but even after an hour of practice, I got to think the debris is pretty bad on the high side.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of stuff up there, but luckily a lot of cars been running this second lane. You can see right here Ed Carpenter almost using the seam of that second lane as his apex, as his white line for running that second lane. That's going to keep that lane nice and clean, but anything above where Graham Rahal is running right now, it gets real dirty real quick, and you do have to be careful. But Joseph Newgarden. And I think sending a bit of a message there, just saying, hey, I'm still the guy here. I might be the third of 3 Penske drivers on the timing sheets right now, but when it comes to racecraft around this place, I'm not sure there's anyone much better than the two.
You can see on Joseph's onboard here that higher lane is still defined by a dark rubber section, and then it goes, you can see how to the high side, Kevin, it goes from pretty dark charcoal to just light colored, and that's, you know, right up here it's defined, and I think that's the area, that's the no-fly zone. Nobody wants to be up into that light gray. As long as you're still in the groove, you're good, but if you drop the right fronts just in that light gray area, it's going to be really hard to hang on. Newgarden's flirting with it.
By the way, comparing first practice speeds from last time IndyCar was here, 171.9 was the first practice top speed. Pole speed in 2020, 175.1 on lap 1, 175.3 miles per hour on lap 2. And we might see bigger speeds because qualifying is starting tomorrow morning at 9:30 local time. So Devlin DiFrancesco go by in that bright yellow number 29 Andretti Steinbrenner car as we ride with Colton Herta. And final seconds ticking away in an incident-free first and only practice session for the TT IndyCar Series for the weekend. Next up tomorrow morning, it's qualifying. A 250-lap race, and then a 300-lap race on Sunday. Down to Dave.
Let's talk to one of the new guys, Scott McLaughlin, first time at this track. How is it coming to you, mate?
Well, Dave, second time because I tested it, but that's
well, you know.
I'm not kidding myself, but no, I feel really good. The Freightliner Chevy looks awesome and feels really good too. So, we'll see what we got tomorrow. But blimey, man, it's hot out there. It's going to be a long, hard weekend, and it's going to be a test of the fittest, and I'm looking forward to it.
With the test, with today's running, where were the big steps that you took?
Look, we arrived here probably a little bit heavy, in terms of front aerodynamics, so the car was quite loose initially, so we had to back that back up. But once the grit came to the track, we felt pretty good, and I think I'm glad we have tested here. I was able to get some experience on the newer tyre with a gripped up track, and hopefully that serves us well tomorrow.
All right, second time here. Scott McLaughlin, Dylan.
And Connor Daly ends up second fastest today. Just got beat out there by Will Power. But what'd you learn? How's your race car?
It was just a shame. Power got us, and I knew as soon as we did our second run on new tires, we just got a little traffic, and I thought the car felt better too, which is a shame. But we had a good gap on the field really the most of that session, which is nice. Car is good right out the gate. It's hotter than the devil's underbritches out there, that's for sure. But yeah, good to see Chevy top 3. We want to keep this going. Obviously, we knew we were going to be confident here, and we want to do it for bit now. We want to get them on the podium. We want to get them a win. So yeah, we'll see what we can do.
We talked to your mom and Doug in the campground during our broadcast. They are confident in you. How confident are you for tomorrow and Sunday, given what you learned today?
Well, I mean, honestly, we can be confident because of what we just did. I think we ran the second lane behind some people, and past the 10 car, past a couple other good cars that we know are not too bad. And the track's widened out, which is nice. And it was it's just feel the least bad, because it's really tough after 30, 40 laps, really tough here. It's a menace, but pretty good. I come in and I'm like, man, that was tough. And they're like, well, I mean, actually, you're pretty good. And I was like, all right, well, we'll take it.
All right, Connor Daly ends up second today, and as he said, just trying to be the least bad of everybody else out there today.
And Connor put up his quick time in the first 10 minutes. It almost lasted. Will Power got him towards the end of the session. So as expected, the Penske's were quick, but it's tight.
Very tight. Pato O'Ward with a really good run. Marcus Ericsson also with Chip Ganassi, and Jimmy Johnson solidly in the top 10. He did a lot of experimentation that session. Fun to watch him work into the groove.
By the way, top 10, that's separated by 0.3 of a second as we see the rest of the 26 car field for the weekend. Let's hear from the fastest. Dylan. Dave, rather.
That's all right,
Thank
Kev.
you,
I'll
Dave.
take it. I'm down here with Will Power right there at the end. Connor was a little disappointed you nipped him there, but Fast day for you, my friend.
Yeah, car feels really good. Don't know what else to kind of look for. It felt good in the long run. We made some changes, and at least we know what they do. Now you got to kind of, whatever you run in quali, you got to race. So there's a bit of a compromise there, but yeah, never know on this race. Like I feel like we got a good car, and really hope we can have a good weekend.
You've had to practice and qualify in the heat here before. Yeah. What do you think about racing in it? This is about race time tomorrow and Sunday.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I think it tire degs more, and it's better for racing, and it's a really cool track. Really, really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun.
And you feel like maybe the 12 team has gotten it to where you can do better on that than the others?
We'll see. We'll see. I mean, there's a lot of good teams and drivers in this series now, so you can really never predict where you're going to qualify. You can't predict where you're going to race. So all you can do is your absolute best, and that's what we're doing.
All right, thanks. We'll stay tuned for the fun. Kev, remember, tomorrow qualifying, the first lap sets the position for you in race 1. The second lap, race 2, kind of unique.
And that's what we'll get started at 10:30 Eastern, 9:30 local time, Central Time tomorrow, qualifying on Peacock. The Indy Lights race is coming up just after noon Eastern Time. And then we'll watch Townsend down right in front of the stage for the Tim McGraw concert. We'll try to get him up to the booth 4 o'clock because Green Flag is at 4:06 Eastern. NBC and Peacock for the HiVDeals.com 250 Florida-Georgia line to cap off the night tomorrow night. And then Sunday we'll do it again with Gwen Stefani getting us warmed up 1 o'clock Eastern Time, noon local, and the Hy-Vee Salute to Farmers 300, 3 o'clock on NBC coming up on Sunday afternoon. And a Blake Shelton concert helps us navigate our way home and help ease the outgoing traffic. Fun day so far. Clean day, Townsend.
Clean day, but exciting, inspiring. It's going to be a great weekend of racing in Iowa. All this side-to-side action, cars bumping and sliding around. It's going to be a tough one. The winner will be one heck of a driver on that day.
Big challenge, and we'll do it twice. Join us tomorrow on Peacock and on NBC both days for the Hy-Vee IndyCar weekend.